One of the hardest things about having a construction company and having a background in carpentry has always been meeting customer expectation. You see, we live in a world where people go online and they look at pictures of random installs in other people's houses in different spaces. Some spaces are taller, spaces are smaller. They might see a 2 or 3 or even a single piece molding installation in one place, think that they want it for their house, and then when the material is purchased and installed, they hate it. I found one of the best ways to mitigate customer expectations by creating shadow boxes or these little dioramas or displays. This way, we can take this flat molding and turn it into a three-dimensional visual indicator or visual aid. This way, the customer can see the outside and inside corners, and they have a better idea of how tall or small this molding actually is. We're gonna build it with some scrap material I had laying around from another job. Right after this message from our sponsor, VCG Construction. Want to help out with the channel? Head on over to merch store. You get hats, hoodies, t-shirts. Link will be in the description below. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Vince. Here's the deal. We have one of the display boxes. I think this would be appropriate for our customer. They don't have very high ceilings. I think that the single piece installation will be perfect for their house. They saw something that is more intricate. It's a 2-piece molding. It's going to be heavier. It's going to be taller. I want to just give them an expectation of what it will look like in real time in a 3-dimension, not just a flat piece of molding. You can't really tell how a multi-piece installation will look if it's just laying down here on the table. You can't see the outside corners. You can't see the inside corners. You can't see how it actually will all play out. That's why these are invaluable. Let's get to it. We're going to build a slightly larger box this time. You can see this box actually has dimensions. It's about 7 inches all around. This multi-piece installation is going to need more height to really get a good feel for the molding installation. So we're going to go with 10 inches. When I'm by myself, what I'll do is I'll make somewhat rough cuts, which that was pretty doggone good, with the circular saw on these larger sheet products. And then what I'll do is I'll true them up on the table saw. This way, it'll be 100% accurate. You know, when I made my rough cut, I gave myself an extra 1/8. This way, I don't have to try to slide this sheet product over the table saw all by myself. Now, there are people that have much larger shops with massive table saws that actually could do that. I'm a contractor. I don't have that ability. I don't have that set up here. So this is what I do. This is my method. It's not going to be the best method for everybody. It's the best method for me. So I want to just true this up. We're set at 10 inches. We're going to lower this blade down though, because I don't need all that depth. That's a really nice cut. Really smooth. Now, if you're wondering, the blade on here We're cutting finished grade plywood pretty much, right? Birch. You can see here, this is a spider tarantula. This is a 60 tooth, 10-inch blade. It's made for, I don't know if it says it on here, but it's made for like plywood, pretty much fine finish. If you wanted to check out the spider blades, that one, because finished blades, 10-inch, even 12-inch blades can be very expensive. You could find the pricing on those in the YouTube shopping button. They're running like a real aggressive promo, especially right now. If you can, maybe you'll score it. Okay, next thing, we're gonna mimic somewhat of this box, but obviously it's not going to be exactly the same size because we have more depth and we're gonna have more depth. We're gonna have a little leftover material. I probably like to use that for a little more length. I mean, quite frankly, I have a whole sheet of plywood. If I wanted to, I could make it as big as a house. Glad that worked. Beautiful. Schmoove. We have a little cut off on the edge here. So we're left over with just an eighth. All right. Gonna clamp our guides down. You really could have done. I could have mortised this and got the router table out and routed in a groove. This way it would lock into place. But that would just take too much time. You know what I mean? That would be overkill for this. So instead I'll have 50. I'll use 50 clamps instead. This is overkill. I don't know if I have like a screw. A screw sorter in the back. Now we're getting somewhere. Where? I'm not certain, to be honest with you. So we're good top and bottom. Okay. Now that was easy. We have our box. Let's move on to step 2. Okay. Because we're doing a 2-piece molding, right? We're gonna need to set the bottom first, right? I don't want to cope the smaller piece, so we're gonna set this first, indent at this wall. Okay? We'll cope this next piece here. We'll have a return edge here and return edge here. Straight 8 inches. I like that 3/4. how the two pieces will meet there. I like that. So we're going to go with that. I want to keep my pins here and here, and then give myself a pin there and there. When you're marking precise measurements, you need to move your measurements from where you are to the edge a lot of times. And what I'm saying is, like, I've measured here, but marked up there. Of course, I want it to be at the edge. But what I'm saying is 6 inches from here to here is not the same as 6 inches from here to here. Okay? If that makes any sense. That was easy. Now we have to cope. We have to cope our profile for the back side. We're going to return that edge as well for the first piece. So next step is we're going to have to cope a piece of molding to butt into our molding here. So we'll start that by putting our first cut on this piece of molding. So what we're going to need to do to cope that molding is turn our miter saw at 45 degrees to expose the profile of this molding. Once we've exposed that molding, we need to cut this tail piece off of the molding so that it could butt in properly to our other piece of molding. So pretty much we have to cut that flat. All we'll do is set the miter saw up 0 degrees. Now that it's cut flat, it will properly butt once we cope out this profile. Now we need to fine tune that just a little bit. And you could do it multiple ways. There's not much to really to work on here to fine tune this. I could use a rotary tool, but I'm pretty much so close. I'm just going to go with a file. So I'll just take down some of these hard edges. I like this round file especially because on this colonial style, it allows me to get in to the circular portions and just take some of that leftover meat off so you get a really tight fit. Some people are opposed to coping the molding. They say it takes too much time, but the reality is that number one, on top of a better finished product, coping the molding will speed up the process of fitting the molding in place. It's actually faster than trying to find the correct miter and close your joint. Now, if you have a hard time seeing your profile, before you start to cope, you could actually run a pencil over it. I'll show you that on the next one. But we're pretty much... Next step, we're going to return this edge as well. Now have our coped edge here, lined up. We're going to make our return piece here. We'll straighten back up. That's why I love pen nailers. I'm going to get that in place. Our first piece of our two-piece crown cornice profile moldings. A lot of people just interchangeably call a cornice a crown molding because generally crown moldings make up cornices. You can have a single crown as a cornice, but when you have multi pieces, generally those multi pieces, for instance, this is a base molding. The first piece is a base molding, but it's going to be used in the cornice alongside or in addition to the crown molding. Instead of coping this secondary piece into the longer piece, I might normally do that depending on how my molding is running, but and how I determined to make the least amount of copes. Um, but here's the reality: this piece is going to be the harder of the two to cut and cope on the same piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this piece of crown molding straight in and then cope to that. We pretty much have a 1 inch, we're going to call it reveal from this detail of the first piece to the crown where it's going to sit. So what we're going to do is we're going to mimic that as we make our return edges. Okay, now that's where this crown is going to return up, right? So what we want to do is we want to take our measurement from here to here. You can see you're right at 5 inches. Okay? Now the way we measure that is from the tip of the molding, the very tip of this edge, this returned edge. So we're going to come here. We're going to cut off at 5 inches. Okay, this way we have a nice clean line for us to make our cut. We're going to straighten up our saw to make that cut. Like, do you see the cut on this? Do you see how smooth that is? That is really nice. This is probably one of those instances where it's probably one of the hardest installations because all of the moldings are very short and they're in a very fixed, tight space, right? So you could only manipulate the moldings so much. If this was going up in a normal installation, especially with drywall, you have room to, like, you use spring pressure to drive these copes together. You can manipulate the moldings and twist them. Okay, so now we really do need to cut from the other way, but what I could do is I'll cut it this direction. Here's the only problem with cutting from the opposite direction. Sometimes if a miter saw is off just a hair, sometimes they'll cut differently depending on which direction you're cutting from. So your miters might not be as tight. Just keep that in mind. To cut that outside right outside corner, we need it to be, we're flipped upside down because I can't cut to the other side of the saw. Right? So we need to be at 31.6 degrees on our miter scale. We need to be 33.9 on our bevel scale. Okay, now that we have the correct angle here, we're going to need to determine our length in the box. And what we want to do is we want to mimic the same reveal from the detail all the way around. So you can see here, we have roughly an inch, if it's set at the right spring angle, about an inch reveal here. So we want to have an inch reveal here as well. So we've marked our molding to accept the return at that point. Now, if we were to take the measurement from here to there, you will see we're at about 5 inches. So that means that our crown from here to here needs to be cut at 5 inches. Just marked off. This way I have a clear line of sight here. I'm going to straighten up our saw. Okay, we're coming to our box. We have our piece here. Now we're going to need to cut our return. All we're going to do for that is we're going to reverse our cut to create that return. Now there's a trick to getting a clean return. I'm going to show you in just a second. We're reversed. We're at 31.6, 33.9. Now this is going to be our return piece. The trick to cutting a perfect return piece is we want no thickness to the molding. You need to cut exactly at this point. This all needs to come off so that this will, if it's cut too thick, the return will hold the molding away from the wall. We don't want that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll make a mark just so it's highly visible. And we want to make sure that we're cutting to the left of the line, not the right of the line. We're going to straighten up our saw to cut our return. We'll make sure our saw's lined up correctly. Then we'll make our cut. See how there's virtually no thickness left to the molding at the profile? It comes to a point. Okay, and this is the reason that's important. As these moldings come together, we want the thickness of the profile at the rear to meet perfectly. Otherwise, your molding will be held back away from the wall. I'm going to use my pin nailer to pre-assemble this. Because trying to assemble it once it's in the box probably will not be ideal. And if we were actually installing this, we would be using adhesive, but we're not, so we're not going to. It's just for a display. So you can see we've landed right on our 1 inch mark here, 1 inch mark there. Everything looks nice and uniform. It's really shaping up. I gotta be honest with you. Two-piece molding like this, It's not overly heavy. It's just right. It adds something to the just standard crown. I really like it. I like it a lot. All right, so what we need to do next is we need to cope this molding to meet our molding there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to reveal the profile of this molding. We're gonna put a miter on it, but in reverse of what you'd think you'd do traditionally for an inside corner. Okay, so what we're going to do to reveal that inside corner is we're going to set our saw once again to 31.6 degrees and 33 and 33.9 to reveal this outside edge. Okay. Oh, look at that. It's like we almost have the perfect return, but it's not too thick. All right. Now, same as with the flat base molding. We're going to need to cut off this edge or this tip so that when we cope the molding, we don't have this pointy part so it can meet the other piece of molding flat. Okay? What you're going to do is you're going to straighten up your saw. And you're going to cut that tail right off. Okay? To the right of the line. Sometimes it's my overly anal. I have to get it right to the edge. Some of you say that your old eyes, you have a hard time seeing your molding, your profile. Good little trick is just rub your pencil over the edge here, the profile. This way, it gives you a better visual for you to cope. Oh, to be honest with you, is not a good spot. I have to come around. I always find that crown always requires slightly more finesse after you're done. But we're pretty doggone close. There's a little trick for taking a little bit more meat off the bone. Now, inevitably, someone will always ask me, why don't you just use a flap disc? And you could, but a lot of times we're working in occupied spaces when we're installing crown. And I want to keep the amount of meat that I need to remove to a minimum. So I always use sanding as a touch up. I use the saw to cut the main portion. Yeah. Much better, much better. Okay, now we want to do the same thing on this edge as we did with the other edge. We want our molding to return 1 inch before. You have to decide where you're going to cut to for your return and stick with it, right? So, for instance, we're going to return this edge. Okay, you have to determine where you're cutting your return edge on this side and then stick with it. If you're going to measure from the bottom, you measure from the bottom, you make your cut that direction, or vice versa from the top. Now, here's the deal. We're going to measure from this edge to this edge. So we're at 6 3/8 of an inch. And that will be to our return. 6 3/8 of an inch. So pretty much we're going to mimic this cut, but to the other direction, right? So we're not exposing the profile. We want to reveal it and make a miter. Miter will be this way. So 31.6, 33.9. Now that we have our cut made, we need to make a return, and we'll fit it in place. Now you have a three-dimensional display so that your customer has an expectation of how outside corners look, how inside corners look, how that second piece is going to look at returns. There's an expectation. They know what they're paying for before they ever give you the deposit. Now, if you'd like, make a better presentation, you could pretty much prep this and paint it so that the client could see. You could even go to the extreme of maybe prepping it, paint part of it flat white, the other part semi-gloss or gloss, so they could see what the different finishes will look like on the molding. I think that gives a good representation of what you can expect when you're doing the install. I think it's great. I think it's a great visual aid. And if you like having the visual aids, and smash the like button. It's free for you to do. It doesn't cost you a dime. Plus, you'll get 7 years of good luck. And you'll have happier and better paying clients. Hope to see you all on the next one.